Phase 2 for the Genshin Impact 3.4 update is about to drop, featuring Yelan, leaving a lot of players feeling the pressure that they don't want to miss out on what they've heard to be a better Xingqiu. But I'm here to offer one hard truth, and that Xingqiu and Yelan aren't the same character, and she's not necessarily just always a better Xingqiu. As always, make sure you give someone a call today, even if it's just to say hi. We both know and love Yelan as well as Xingqiu for their elemental bursts, as they are both excellent ways to apply hydro aura and do hydro damage while they are off the field. In the case of Yelan, we're going to have Depth Clarion Dice, which is going to apply hydro and do damage according to her max HP, with a 15-second duration and an 18-second cooldown with a 70 energy cost for her elemental burst. Xingqiu, on the other hand, has Guha Sword Rain Cutter, which is going to be a 20-second cooldown with a 15-second duration that also costs 80 elemental energy. Now, while in the game the descriptions for these are nearly identical, you'd think they do the same exact thing as far as applying hydro aura to characters around you. It's just not really the case. Xingqiu, compared to a Constellation 0 Yelan, actually has much more hydro application because of the way that the character's internal cooldown, as well as the amount of hydro aura they can apply in various ways, works. Basically, you're going to have the ability to apply slightly higher amounts of hydro aura application with Xingqiu compared to a Constellation 0 Yelan. Now, this is because of the slight different ways that Yelan's elemental bursts, internal cooldown, and application work together with each other, compared to how Xingqiu's works with the ability that you also apply slight hydro aura around you for having and holding a Guha sword on your active character. So while it might not be true for every single combination of team you're going to be using with either Xingqiu or Yelan, as a general statement, you're going to be able to use Xingqiu to consistently and constantly apply much more hydro aura, which will allow you to vaporize more often, freeze more often, or even provide higher bloom generation for your team. But that might not be a deal breaker for you, because unlike Xingqiu, Yelan also has an Ascension talent with Adept with Ease, which is going to allow you to increase the damage of the character that is your active character during the duration of her elemental burst. It starts at 1% more damage and moves all the way up to 50% more damage, increasing by 3.5% damage every second. Opposite to that, instead of damage bonus from his elemental burst, Xingqiu is going to allow you to reduce the damage that you receive, because during his elemental burst duration, you are going to have generated a nice little sword. And these rain swords are going to reduce the damage that you take by 24%. This comes from both his elemental skill, but also counts for the swords on you during the duration of his elemental burst. And this damage reduction is going to further increase the strength of different shields you may apply to different characters. But in addition to the damage reduction, he also has hydropathic, which is going to increase the amount of healing and damage reduction you're going to be able to do, because this is going to heal 6% of Xingqiu's max HP every time a sword is shattered or it expires. Now, while it's not the most insane amount of healing in Genshin Impact, when you use characters like Hu Tao, who want to be healed a little bit, but not a whole ton, this healing can sort of help you alleviate the stressful situation of being at 1% HP for forever. It's definitely something to keep in mind when comparing the two characters. Yelan's going to allow you to have higher damage from your skills due to her elemental burst ability, while Xingqiu is going to allow you to have slightly higher hydro aura application, while also feeling a little bit more safe from the damage reduction and the minor amount of healing that he does add. Outside of that, the characters also scale their damage in their own ways, which may be a good thing or a bad thing for you depending on your gear. Xingqiu is going to be scaling off of attack stats, which means that you're going to be using as much attack, crit chance, crit damage, in addition to the amount of energy recharge you need to keep his elemental burst active as much as possible. This allows you to utilize a lot of different builds, but namely the sacrificial sword is a very strong weapon on Xingqiu, allowing you to get that high energy recharge amount, while also increasing the amount of particles that you generate for your party by a substantial amount. And this is from the refinement ability that allows you to reset the cooldown on his elemental skill, which also happens to generate a ton of hydro particles. This can be utilized as a battery in addition to doing damage and damage reduction and hydro application for Xingqiu. And while this isn't a weapon tier list or a weapon guide for Xingqiu and Yelan, Yelan has a big benefit being an HP scaler, because all of her damage that's relevant, her elemental skill, her elemental burst, all scale off HP. This means that you're a little bit more free to choose weapons as a free-to-play player if you have access to Yelan, because being HP scaling means she does not need to wear a 5-star weapon. She doesn't benefit at all from the 5-star weapon base stats like attack. As she's HP scaling, she doesn't care about the base attack of the weapon whatsoever, which allows you to use a lot of interesting options in even low-level weapons in some circumstances. One of her best weapons being the Favonius Warbow. It does give her a significant amount of energy recharge, and kind of similar to how Xingqiu can use the Sacrificial Sword to reset and provide particles, Yelan can use weapons like the Favonius Warbow, which even though it has a lower base attack compared to a lot of other weapons, she can still get the particle generation and the energy recharge without sacrificing damage. And it's not just the Favonius Warbow that can be good for Yelan either. There's a lot of excellent 3-star and 4-star options that allow you to swap up her build for your own unique playstyle, and it could be something that benefits you greatly. And while at first glance it might look like a downside that you can't use some of the cool weapons that you might have access to on your account that give you attack percent for a substat or damage bonus up as a refinement rank or attack percent as a refinement rank, it's actually an upside for Yelan, as it allows her to use a lot of your unused weapons on your account and make her very powerful with. And while Xingqiu does technically have some HP scaling with his 6% max HP health and healing, Yelan's going to benefit a lot more from the Soothing Water ×2 Hydro Resonance, because it does give 25% increased max HP, which is not only going to affect something like Xingqiu's healing, but all of Yelan's damage as well. Double Pyro teams used to be a mainstay for a long time, simply due to the 25% increased attack. So you can see just how powerful an effect like that can be for a character scaling with that stat for their damage. Another difference between the two characters, while Xingqiu has been mainly relegated to elemental reaction only teams due to his ability to be a very powerful support for Vaporize, Bloom, Freeze teams sometimes as well, Yelan can be kind of put in a little bit more teams because of just her sheer raw power of Adapt with Ease. If you want to just do a raw damage team, this can give you the equivalent of 20-30% or maybe even more average damage during any character's elemental burst damage window. Are you a Noelle fan that wants 30% plus more damage during your elemental burst? You can do that. You can do that with any character, period, in Genshin Impact. So it does give her a little bit more flexibility than just being a Hydro Applicator Vaporize bot like Xingqiu does. And as far as damage goes, in my experience, Yelan's able to provide a lot more of her own personal damage just because of the way you can build her and how she interacts with a lot of artifact sets in Genshin Impact, as well as teammates. Which isn't saying that Xingqiu's a slouch at all, able to do a lot of elemental burst damage and elemental skill damage with the proper build, at least in my experience, seem to take a little bit more higher gear quality to make sure you hit the right amount of energy recharge, crit chance, crit damage, as well as attack to maintain everything he needs to do, whereas Yelan can sort of just get crit chance, crit damage, energy recharge, and then HP. As far as energy recharge requirements for each character goes, it is going to change substantially based on what teams you're putting them in, but Yelan in the proper build is pretty easy to hit those ER requirements. And also, once you hit these ER requirements on these characters, Yelan's going to feel a little bit more consistent, because if you're doing a Xingqiu build that absolutely relies on Sacrificial Sword resetting his cooldown so you can generate more particles for himself, if you come up against an enemy who's shielded and so this won't reset, or you just get unlucky because you didn't get the 80% proc on a Refinement Rank 5 Sacrificial Sword, or maybe you don't have an 80% proc because your sword isn't rank 5, you could come into some energy recharge and elemental burst starvation moments in your average time playing Genshin. And the funny story about these two characters is, while they do have a lot of similar teammates that you want to use them with in Vaporize teams and Bloom teams, a lot of these teams as well, use both of these characters because they're just the bestest of friends. They're both Hydro characters, so they generate Hydro particles. And both of these characters need a pretty significant amount of energy recharge in their builds. So if you have both of them together, Their hydro particles are going to help feed each other's energy recharge requirements. And this is going to lower the amount of energy recharge you need on both of the characters that gain the amount of energy you need to use their burst as consistently as possible. And on top of that, everything we just talked about that was different between the two harmonizes great, because you'll have Xingqiu for damage reduction in a slight amount of healing, and then you'll have Yelan for bonus damage as well. Xingqiu will also take away that slight little downside of having a C0 Yelan, where she doesn't provide as much hydro application as Xingqiu does. Well, because you have them both in the party, which allows you to absolutely drown your enemies in hydro-related reactions over and over and over. Now, there is one final thing to consider about these characters that is different between each other. Xingqiu doesn't really help you traverse the world that much, but Yelan's skill is insane. I love her elemental skill for running around the world in Genshin. I haven't taken her off of my party since I've gotten her in the world. Which leads me to say one more final thing on constellations here. C1 for Yelan, if you already have her and you do use her a lot, C1 is awesome because it gives you another charge of Lingering Lifeline, which while in combat isn't the craziest change because it doesn't affect the amount of particle generation and energy recharge that you need in a lot of rotations. Some, yes, but not every single one. It is going to make her do a little bit more damage in those parties with the slight charge rotation changes. It's also going to make your exploration in Genshin be awesome. Another constellation for Yelan to consider is definitely going to be her Constellation 2. This is going to make her do an extra attack every 1.8 seconds during her elemental burst, which is going to further increase her hydro application, being able to match that of Xingqiu in a lot of these reaction-based teams. So if you want to use her as a solo character, you don't want to miss out on any additional vaporized blooms, anything that involves even more hydro aura application. This can get you there, but it's not necessary to make her good. Yelan and Xingqiu were two of the best characters Genshin Impact has to offer, so having either or both of them on your account built and ready to go will be a great thing. Just know while they're very similar, they're also a little bit different. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. If you want to see more stuff, hit the sub button, come back for more, and I'll see you guys then.